Okay, so think about this. How often are you focused on, like, what's going wrong, what needs fixing? You know what I mean? Like, what's holding you back?
Yeah,
That's pretty normal, right?
totally.
We all do that. But what if we tried something different? What if we flipped the script and we started by just looking at our strengths first?
Interesting.
That's what this whole deep dive is about. It's based on this material we found from Algonquin College. It's called Strength-Based Approach.
Cool.
And we're going to unpack this whole idea. We're going to really try to understand it and then see how we can actually use it.
I love it. It's fascinating because, a lot of times people think that this is just ignoring problems, like you're just slapping on a positive thinking Band-Aid.
Right.
But it's so much deeper than that.
I think so too.
It's about fundamentally changing how you see yourself and how you see your whole situation.
Yeah. This document kind of jumps right in. It starts with this definition from Salibi, and they say, okay, the strength-based perspective recognizes that every person, group, and community has qualities that can be built on to enable them to reach their goals.
Wow.
Mic drop.
That's a great definition.
Right.
I think that's such an important starting point.
Yeah.
Because it really highlights that we need to focus on assets,
Yeah.
not just the problems.
Totally.
It's about recognizing the strengths that are already there
Yeah.
within individuals, their relationships, and their whole communities.
It's about understanding the whole picture, not
cool.
like one little piece of it. And I love this. It lays out these like 6 core principles. It talks about having control over your recovery, focusing on your strengths, being in control of any intervention, building trust and empowerment, and focusing on the community as a resource, which I think is so interesting, as so much of what we see is so individualistic. But this is really saying that we need to think bigger than that.
Definitely.
Are there any of those principles that really stand out to you?
It's funny. You go through all those principles, but I think the one that's just like the core of it all is focusing on strengths.
Yeah.
Like, that's the big idea.
It's the foundation.
Right.
Yeah.
Think about it. We spend so much time dwelling on what's wrong, what we lack.
Right.
But this principle is like, hey, shift your attention. Look at what's working.
Yeah.
Look at what you're good at.
Yeah.
What resources do you already have?
Yeah.
It's about using those strengths to overcome those challenges
Yeah.
and to achieve your goals.
It makes total sense. It's like instead of constantly trying to fix what's broken, you're using what's already strong as a foundation to build on.
Exactly. And that can be so empowering because you start to see yourself not as like this collection of problems,
Right.
but as someone with potential,
Mm.
resilience,
Yeah.
and the ability to create positive change.
So we're shifting our focus to strengths, but how do we even begin to identify them? This document brings up this really interesting model from the Search Institute. Have you ever heard of the CPR model?
Oh, yeah. That's a clever acronym,
Is
right?
it is.
It stands for competencies, promise, resilience, and resources.
I love that. So just remembering CPR, you can quickly remember those core elements. So let's break it down. What are competencies in this context?
So basically, competencies are your skills and abilities,
Okay.
things that you possess. So think about what you're good at. What comes naturally to you, or even skills you've worked hard to develop. You could be problem solving, communication, creativity.
So we all have these competencies, right?
Yeah.
But often we don't even recognize them as strengths. We just take them for granted. So this model is really encouraging us to see those things in a new light.
You got it.
Okay, so what about promise? What does that mean?
Promise is all about your potential. It's your capacity for growth and development. It's like recognizing that you're not a finished product.
Right.
You can always learn and evolve
Yeah.
and achieve even more.
It's about what you could become, too, not just what you can do now. Okay, now resilience. That feels especially important these days, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. Resilience is your ability to bounce back from adversity, like to cope with challenges and setbacks.
Right.
Everyone faces those tough times, but resilient people, they've got that inner strength and resourcefulness
Yeah.
to navigate those challenges and to come out even stronger on the other side.
They're like, bring it on, I got this.
Exactly.
All right. What about resources? What are we talking about when we say resources here?
So resources are anything that support you and help you achieve your goals. It could be your personal support network,
Okay.
like your family, friends, mentors,
Mm-hmm.
or it could be access to things like education, healthcare, or even financial stability.
It's interesting because this model is reminding us that strengths aren't just individual.
Right.
They also exist in our relationships and
Yeah.
our environments.
I think that's crucial to remember.
Yeah.
It's not just about what's inside you. It's also about understanding
Yeah.
that web of support
Mhm.
and resources that you have access to.
Okay, so I'm starting to get a clearer picture of this whole strength-based thing. But I think a lot of people, myself included sometimes, are just so used to the opposite. We're used to focusing on what's wrong.
Right.
But this document has this really helpful comparison chart. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, I saw that.
It puts pathology side by side with strength.
It's a striking contrast.
It is.
Like when you look at the pathology column, you see all these words like diagnosis, interpretation by experts, reducing symptoms.
Yeah.
It's very problem-focused, almost clinical, you know?
Very medical.
Yeah.
But then you look at the strength column, and it's like unique traits, personal account,
Yeah.
aspirations.
Yeah.
It feels so much more personalized, you know?
Definitely.
And focused on understanding the whole person.
Absolutely.
There was one comparison that really stood out to me. It was reducing symptoms versus personal account, routes to knowing. I thought that was so powerful.
That's a good one.
Because it really highlights how a strengths-based approach prioritizes understanding someone's experience
Hmm.
and their perspective
Yeah.
rather than just trying to eliminate the negative symptoms.
Right. Like there's a difference between treating a disease and understanding a person's story.
Totally.
You can't help someone grow and thrive if you don't understand their journey and what's important to them.
It's so true. So let's say we're on board with this whole strengths-based idea. How do we actually go about identifying those strengths? Is it just like a one-time assessment? Do we just ask people, hey, what are your strengths? That seems a little simplistic, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's not that easy, is it?
Right.
Identifying strengths requires a much deeper approach. I think it has to be more nuanced. And it's an ongoing dialogue, really. It's not just a one-time assessment.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And it emphasizes that identifying strengths involves context, right?
Oh, definitely.
It's not about slacking labels on people,
No.
but it's about understanding their strengths in relation to their environment, their experiences.
Their aspirations.
Yeah.
It's about seeing the whole person and understanding what makes them tick.
So how do we even begin to do that? The document outlines these 6 components for identifying strengths. I don't know if you remember them. They're a little technical.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But essentially what it's saying is we have to actively engage with the person. We have to observe their actions, listen to their stories, and continuously update our understanding as we get to know them better.
Well,
It's a process.
it's about asking the right questions, too.
Yeah.
You have to pay attention
Mm.
to what people say and do
Mm-hmm.
and recognize those moments where their strengths shine through.
Okay, so we've identified these strengths. Now what?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. You know, once you've identified those strengths, it's time to put them to work.
Yeah.
This document lays out like a 7-step approach. It's even represented visually, like with arrows showing this progression, from identifying needs all the way to achieving a long-term impact.
So it's like a roadmap. But instead of focusing on weaknesses, it uses strengths as a guide to help people grow.
Yeah, exactly. And remember, it's not just about individual strengths. It's also about connecting people with opportunities where they can use those strengths to make a real difference.
I love that. I'm already seeing how this could apply to so many things, not just to like personal development, but also to teamwork, community building, even figuring out career paths. But let's go back to those 7 steps for a second. The document mentions identifying strengths, skills, interests, and ambitions. But it also includes needs.
Oh, yeah.
Why is that?
That's a good point. I think it's important to remember that everyone has needs, regardless of their strengths.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing the whole person and understanding that even the most capable individuals might need some extra support or resources to really reach their full potential.
So it's about finding that balance between strengths and needs, and then figuring out how to leverage those strengths to address those needs.
Exactly. And that's where those next steps come in. It's about connecting people with opportunities where they can actually use their strengths, providing support and resources when needed, and just creating a space where they can grow and thrive. The document actually has this visual. It's like this chain reaction. That leads to changes in behavior, values, mindset, even self-perception. It's really amazing to see how impactful this approach can be.
You know, I was just thinking, sometimes when I'm feeling stuck, I tend to focus on all the things I'm not good at. But this is like a reminder to flip that script,
Yeah.
to ask myself, what am I good at, and how can I use those strengths to move forward?
It's such a powerful shift.
It is.
And it brings us to something really important. To really understand how this works, we need to define some key terms.
Okay.
Words like capacities, talents, competencies, they can sound kind of academic, I know,
Right.
but they each have a distinct meaning. That can really help us unlock our potential.
Okay, so let's break them down. What are capacities?
So think of capacities as your inherent abilities or potential. It's what you're capable of doing based on, your natural traits or developed competencies. It's like that raw potential just waiting to be unleashed.
Like a seed that has the potential to grow into a flower, but it needs the right conditions to really flourish.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great analogy. Now, talents are often used interchangeably with aptitudes. They're those natural abilities or skills that you're kind of born with.
Okay.
Talents give you a head start in certain areas.
So someone might have a natural talent for music, athletics, problem solving, something like that.
Exactly.
It's like they just have this knack for it.
Right. But while talents are innate, competencies are the skills and behaviors you develop over time. They often relate to specific tasks or jobs and can be learned through practice and experience.
So going back to that music example, if someone has a natural talent for music, that's like their starting point.
Right.
But to become a skilled musician, they need to develop competencies like reading music, playing an instrument.
Understanding music theory.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example.
So talents provide the raw material. But competencies are the skills that you hone through effort and experience.
Exactly.
This is really starting to click for me. Okay, so we've got capacities, talents, and competencies. What about possibilities?
So possibilities are all about exploring the potential for certain events or outcomes to occur. It's about recognizing that. Even if you have the talent and the capacity, success isn't guaranteed. There are all these different factors that could influence whether those possibilities actually become reality.
It's like recognizing that.
Yeah.
Even with the best intentions and abilities, there are external factors that can impact our journey.
Absolutely. And that leads us to visions, which
Yeah.
is your long-term aspiration, your
Yeah.
big picture goal for the future. It's about having a clear sense of what you want to achieve or where you want to be in the long run.
It's like having that guiding star, that dream that keeps you motivated and focused, even when things get tough. But visions need a solid foundation, right? That's where values come in. Oh, absolutely. Values are those core principles and beliefs that shape your decisions and actions. They're like your moral compass, right? Guiding you toward a life that aligns with what you hold dear.
So someone might value things like honesty, integrity, creativity,
Yeah.
community involvement, and those values will influence the vision they set for their life, the possibilities they pursue, even the competencies they choose to develop.
It all starts to connect, right?
Yeah.
Values shape your vision. Your vision guides your actions. And that brings us to hopes, which are closely tied to your vision, but they're more emotionally driven.
So a hope might be to find a fulfilling career, while a vision might be to start your own business in a specific field by a certain year.
That's a great distinction.
Yeah.
Hopes fuel your passion and optimism, while visions provide like a concrete roadmap for action.
This is starting to paint such a rich picture, but I have to admit, I'm still a little fuzzy on how to put all of this into practice. The document does mention the importance of environment and resources. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Of course. It's so crucial to remember that people don't exist in a vacuum.
Right.
We're all part of a larger ecosystem. And the document actually highlights 8 specific areas of life
Yeah.
that are all intertwined in this approach. It even uses this really cool diagram to show all these connections.
So it's like a web of interconnected factors, both internal and external, that can either support or hinder our growth.
Exactly.
What are some of those areas?
Well, we've already talked about individual strengths, but
Right.
this model also emphasizes environmental strengths.
Okay.
Things like finances, daily living, work, education, social networks, recreation, overall health, sexuality, and spirituality.
Wow, that's a lot to consider. But it makes sense, though. If you're struggling financially, it's going to be a lot harder to focus on personal growth or pursue your passions.
Exactly. And all of these areas are interconnected. Like if you have stable finances,
Yeah.
that can reduce your stress,
Huh.
which can then have a positive impact on your health and well-being. Or a strong social network can provide emotional support, which can boost your resilience and help you navigate challenges.
It's fascinating how it all fits together. So where do resources come into play?
Resources can be anything that helps you thrive and achieve your goals. It could be your support network, Your family, friends, mentors, community organizations, or it could be access to things like healthcare, education, transportation, or financial assistance.
It's about recognizing that we all need help sometimes,
Mhm.
and knowing where to find those resources can make all the difference.
And then, of course, there are opportunities. These are the chances for growth, learning, development, connection that can help you build on your strengths and reach your full potential.
Opportunities can be so crucial, especially when we're trying something new
Mhm.
or stepping outside of our comfort zone. But how do we even know when an opportunity is right for us?
That's where it becomes essential, to connect your strengths to those opportunities. It's not just about saying yes to everything that comes your way, but about being intentional and choosing opportunities that align with your values, goals, and passions.
So it's about being selective and focusing your energy on opportunities that will truly help you thrive.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got this whole ecosystem of strengths, needs, environment, resources, and opportunities all working together. What's the ultimate goal of this approach? What are we trying to achieve?
So the document describes those desired results as a better quality of life, personal accomplishments, and recovery of power and social integration. It's a really holistic vision of well-being that goes beyond just individual success.
I'm really drawn to that idea of recovery of power.
Yeah.
It just speaks to the empowering nature of this approach. You know, instead of seeing ourselves as victims of circumstance, we're reclaiming our agency and taking control of our lives.
Exactly. And all of these elements we've been discussing, the CPR model, understanding those key terms, recognizing the importance of environment and resources, they all contribute to those desired outcomes. It's like putting together a puzzle, where each piece plays a vital role in creating the complete picture.
This has been so insightful, but I'm still curious about the practical side of things. How do we actually implement this approach in our daily lives? How do we move from theory to action?
That's a great question. And it's one that we're going to delve into more deeply in the next part. We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still more to explore in terms of practical techniques and applications.
All right, so we're back. And I'm excited to dive into the actual how-to of this whole strength-based approach.
Me too.
We've been talking about the theory and the models and all these key terms, but I want to see how it all comes together, like in real life, you know?
Yeah, this is where the magic happens, right?
Mhm.
When you actually start applying these principles, you see how transformative they can be.
Okay, so the document mentions a variety of techniques, but it can be coming back to strengths-based questions. Why are those so important?
Well, think of these questions as like a key. They unlock insights, and they help people discover and articulate their strengths, their resources, their potential.
Okay.
They really shift the focus away from problems and towards solutions, possibilities, empowerment.
It's about changing the whole conversation.
Exactly.
The source material actually lists 7 types of strengths-based questions: survival, support, exception, possibility, esteem, perspective, and change. We've touched on a few examples earlier, but can we dig into some more?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm really intrigued by these different types of questions.
Yeah, let's start with exception questions. These focus on those times when the problem wasn't present or was maybe less severe.
Okay, so instead of dwelling on what's going wrong, we're looking for those moments when things were actually working. I can see
Yeah.
how that could be really powerful.
Yeah, imagine you're working with someone who's feeling totally overwhelmed by stress. You might ask them, can you think of a time, even recently, when you felt less stressed? What was different about that situation?
Interesting.
By exploring those exceptions, you can start to identify patterns and strategies that have worked in the past.
It's like being a detective, right?
Yeah.
Looking for those clues, those moments of success,
Exactly.
however small they might seem, and then figuring out what made them possible.
And once you've identified those patterns,
Yeah.
you can start to replicate them.
I like that. Okay, what about possibility questions?
So possibility questions invite people to imagine a better future and to explore the steps they might take to get there.
It's like giving them permission to dream
Yeah.
and then helping them create a plan.
A classic possibility question is, if you had a magic wand and could change one thing about this situation, what would it be?
Ooh, I like that.
It encourages them to think outside the box,
Yeah.
and to envision a more positive outcome.
It's so powerful to shift the focus from what's wrong to what could be right.
Absolutely.
Okay, what about esteem questions? Those seem pretty straightforward.
They are, but they're super impactful. Esteem questions aim to build confidence and self-worth by highlighting accomplishments and positive qualities.
It's like reminding people of all the amazing things they've already achieved.
Right.
And the strengths they already possess.
You might ask, what are you most proud of in your life? Or what are some things you do really well?
Yeah.
Those simple questions can really spark a sense of pride and self-belief.
And when you believe in yourself,
Yeah,
anything feels possible, right?
exactly.
Okay, perspective questions. What are those all about?
Perspective questions encourage people to step back
Mm.
and view their challenges from a different angle.
Okay.
They help gain a broader perspective and find meaning even in those difficult situations.
So it's not about denying the challenges,
Right.
but about finding ways to learn and grow from them.
A really powerful perspective question is, what have you learned about yourself through this experience?
Oh, that's a good one.
It encourages reflection and helps them see the situation as an opportunity for growth.
It's like that saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah,
But instead of just surviving, you're actually thriving.
exactly.
Okay, last but not least, change questions.
Change questions help people identify concrete steps that they can take to move forward. They focus on action and empower them to make changes.
So instead of feeling stuck or overwhelmed, they're taking control and making things happen.
Yeah. A great change question is, what's one small thing you can do today that would make a positive difference?
I love that.
It breaks down big goals into those smaller, more manageable steps.
It's amazing how these questions can be so simple yet so profound.
Right.
They really get to the heart of this whole strength-based approach.
They do.
It's all about empowering people to discover their own strength, resources, and solutions.
And by incorporating these questions into our conversations, we can really help others unlock their potential and create positive change.
This has been so eye-opening for me. I'm already thinking about how I can use these techniques in my own life, with my friends, family, even at work.
That's the beauty of it, right? It's versatile and applicable in so many different contexts.
We've covered so much in this deep dive. From the core principles to the practical techniques, I feel like I have this whole new toolbox now for approaching challenges and supporting others.
And remember, it's not just a set of tools or techniques. It's a mindset. It's a way of seeing the world that focuses on possibilities, resilience, and the inherent worth of every individual.
It's about believing in ourselves and others, and empowering everyone to reach their full potential.
So as we wrap up, I just encourage you to reflect on what you've learned. How can you incorporate these principles into your own life? What strengths can you build upon? What possibilities can you explore?
And remember, you don't have to do it alone. Reach out to your support network, tap into those resources, and never underestimate the power of this strength-based approach.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. We hope you feel inspired to embrace the power of your own strengths.
Until next time, keep those strengths shining